Hank, do you have any messages for the people out there on your 80th birthday?
Pray.
That's it?
Pray and don't stop praying. We're very close to the end.
Hey, everybody out there. Great to see you in Son of Sam land. Hey, we got a great one for you today. In fact, I'm super excited. Why am I excited? Well, because today we are debunking MMB. More Maury bullshit. And what are we doing today? Well, the great John Catalano and I are embarking on a journey today, a journey where, we're not sure how long it's going to take or where it's going to take us or how long, when it's going to end. But we are embarking on North Dakota. Yes. You know, it's funny because when John and I did our now classic Brooklyn series, I told the audience, I said, you know, I was actually scared to look at the Brooklyn files because, I was worried that my worldview, that there was no cult, that Maury was lying to us. I was worried that was going to get shattered by me looking at those files, and then I would see in all those files, hey, here's Tommy Zano's description of Barry Dosenko, and look, here's a van with 1 million people in it, and there's a camera in the van, and Cecilia Davis saw Berkowitz drive away. Well, that all turned out to be BS. But I got to tell you, folks, with North Dakota, I had no such compunctions. And why? Well, because Eric Galati and I, as you may remember last year, we had actually touched upon a little bit of the North Dakota tapes. We looked at Tom Turkey's tape, and we realized that everything that was reported in The Ultimate Evil about Tom Turkey and John Carr and the Son of Sam symbol, well, let's just say it was MMB as well. So I figured, well, look, my work is done. You can't top Brooklyn. Brooklyn took so much out of us that, what was the point of continuing? And I figured that, well, the Son of Sam community would do the necessary work, that the morons out there would listen to all the North Dakota tapes and they would realize everything that we realized. But it wasn't to be. So because of that, I was definitely enticed and interested and coming back to the game and picking up where we left off. And of course, today, it ain't about me. It's about we. Yes. So without further ado, let's get the man of the hour in here. Well, this gentleman here, this fine gentleman, of course, one of the absolute top Son of Sam researchers out there, and in, of course, the history of the case. And why? Because, well, he's an honest person, an honest broker, a person who once was on the cult train and who realized that he was colossally bullshitted, and he changed his mind. In fact, when it comes to Son of Sam, this guy has forgotten more than you'll ever know. So may I introduce to you the one, Moet. I think you're going to want to sit down for this one over here, girl. The only John Catalano. Yes.
Well, you could never leave the game, Manny.
The game. I can't leave the game, man. It's like no matter what I do, I just can't leave this game. And
you got us all through the pandemic with your walking videos. Then we got all the new evidence released, and you kept trying to get away from it, but this story is in us, and we have to see it through all the way.
We have to see it through. Absolutely. And you know what? We are going all the way. We're going to take the whole summer to do this if we have to. We're going to touch everything there is to touch on this case. We ain't done. So, John, let the audience know. I want to set up a few things technically over here. Let the audience know what we're going to be looking at today.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is my 8th time you invited me on, and we've covered 4 topics. I think tonight is the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much what I do whenever you invite me is I immediately go back to the book, and I want to see what Maury said about that particular incident that we're going to talk about. And I'll go to reports, I'll go to interviews, I'll go to newspaper articles, and basically a disturbing pattern has presented itself. And apparently, there's either omissions, exaggerations, or sometimes out and out lies. the evidence, the actual reports, never seem to match up to what we were told was the scenario in the Ultimate Evil. And you're about to find out what we found out about tonight about North Dakota.
Right, exactly. Tonight is just another example of that. And listen, John, you know it as well as I do. We put out the call. If anybody can come to us with some new evidence, right, that no one's ever seen before, some secret stash of actual actionable evidence that can be used in a court of law to convict an accomplice, we will have them on the show. And in fact, we will praise them as the greatest Son of Sam theorists ever, because you and I originally came at this as cultists, but it just wasn't to be. I mean, you know.
I welcome it. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day if Berkowitz was alone or with 17 other people. I mean, I have no problem apologizing and saying, you know what? I overlooked this evidence. I was wrong.
Right. Or we were just unaware of it. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's fine. But it just never seems to present itself.
It never does. In fact, today we are going to be showing the audience, well, more examples of how we were lied to, bullied, manipulated, and abused by the drunkard Maury Terry. So, of course, today, let's just get into it, John, because we have quite a bit to do today. We prepared, you and I have prepared a stellar slideshow for the audience with a lot of audio to play today. And so today we are looking at Phil Falcon's story. So, of course, Phil Falcon is a character from the Ultimate Evil who plays a big role, actually, in convicting John Carr, essentially, as being involved in Son of Sam, connecting him as well to David Berkowitz. It's Phil Falcon's testimony, and we'll read passages from the book that really, in my mind, solidified that John, quote, Wheaties, unquote, Carr was not only involved with Berkowitz, but was an active shooter in Son of Sam. So, of course, the question then begs is, well, who was this guy, Phil Falcon? And John, do we know anything really about this guy? I mean, he's kind of like a lost to history kind of figure. I found this picture online, which purports to be him. I know that he owned a coffee house in North Dakota. What else do we know about this cat?
Yeah, apparently he was a Vietnam vet, got out of the service and put a couple of dollars together to open up a coffee shop. From what I gathered, he was born and raised in North Dakota. He was a local. So these people that he met, although when I had originally read The Ultimate Evil, I got the impression that they were a pack of friends for a long time. But apparently that wasn't the case. He met a lot of these people, including John Carr, towards the end of his stay. He eventually moved out of North Dakota.
Right, exactly. And when we listen to the tapes, we're going to realize that he actually didn't really know John Carr all that well at all. Kind of just a passing person in his life. But Phil Falcon first came to the people of the world's attention in one of Maury Terry's articles in the Gannett newspapers in the 70s. And it says down here, one friend, Phil Falcon, said Carr told him he belonged to a large, violent cult whose sacrifices went all the way, right? So there's one place where right here, one friend, Phil, said Carr belonged to a large, violent, satanic cult, and they met indoors and outdoors near the Carr home in North Dakota, and so on and so forth. So we're going to hear a little bit of audio about that. And of course, here is an article, and we're not going to read the whole thing. In fact, it's almost impossible to read because I didn't realize that it doesn't show up when you blow it up like this. But I found this, or somebody found this for me. I'm not quite sure, but it's a letter. Who sent this? Did you send this to me, John?
No.
It's a letter that Phil Falcon wrote. Phil Falcon. It's a little hard to see. Phil Falcon, XE4, Minot, North Dakota, Peace Brothers, and it's all about some Vietnam veteran, and it's not pertinent to our discussion today, but this is just to prove.
That was Dave Moth who sent that to you.
That's right. Dave Moth sent this to me. Right.
Good job,
exactly.
Dave.
Yeah, Moth found some good stuff. Now, this isn't pertinent to our discussion, but it is, of course, just more proof that this guy actually existed in the real world. and he was a living, breathing human being. So, of course, thanks, Dave, for that. But, of course, we are concerned about one thing and one thing only: Phil Falcon's testimony versus what Maury Terry told us that he said.
And
So
I'd urge anyone to go back and read that chapter, just so you know me and Manny aren't crazy and making things up. Because,
exactly.
yeah, the impression Maury gives on these events, almost 180 degrees of what we discovered in these interviews. So
it's unbelievable, John. I mean, like, so far I have yet to find something where he actually told the truth. I mean, if you think about it, that's the reality that we're dealing with. So, of course, as we all know, in order to build a house, you need to lay the foundation. And of course, all of the work that we do here is predicated on, well, laying foundations and making arguments. And of course, in order to make an argument properly in the real world in a logical fashion, you need to lay out your foundation in a logical fashion. So, of course, today, the foundation that we're laying is once again reading the passages from The Ultimate Evil, where Maury tells us, filtered through his lens, what Phil Falcon said about John Carr. So it behooves us, John, to just read a few of these passages. And John, with your permission and indulgence, may I carry on?
yes, let's do it.
All right. So we have several topics, of course, to bring up today, but we'll bring them up in each in order. So, of course, here's one statement: that John Carr was nicknamed Wheaties was confirmed in tape statements by Linda O'Connor, Counselor Lee Slatter, and Phil Falcon, whom we later reached by telephone. On one of his jackets, he even had a patch with a Wheaties box sewn on the shoulder, Falcon said. Okay, all right, so that's one thing. So that John Carr was involved in satanic cult activity, as stated by Berkowitz at Marcy, and crucial to our evaluation of the entire case, was confirmed by Tom Taylor, Darlene Christensen, Leslie Shago, Harless, whoever that is, Phil Falcon, and Carr's own sister, Wheat. She later told Queen's investigators, John's involvement in the occult, I'm not going to deny. There's no way I could deny it. I'd be stupid to deny it. And of course, just as an editorial comment, Maury left out the next part of the quote where she was strictly talking about his drug use. She was equating occult to drug use. It had nothing to do with Satanism or any of that kind of stuff. And any listening to the tape will show you that. It's pretty clear.
And of course, also two things can be true. I mean, it's possible John, in his when he was getting high and fooling around with Ouija boards, or even if he wasn't having satanic rituals, it doesn't necessarily mean that he knew David Berkowitz or
exactly
was joining him in the rituals. You know, I mean,
it was 1975, 76. All of America was on an occult trip. I mean, well, at least the counterculture, the younger people. It was an insane time. I mean, a person can be involved in the occult and not be involved in Son of Sam, exactly like John just said. The problem with the moron set is that they learn from Maury Terry that everything is related, right? If someone has the same last name as someone else, they're involved. All right, let's carry it on because we got quite a bit to do. But perhaps the most graphic description of Carr's cult activities came from his dark-haired Indian friend, Phil Falcon. In a recorded interview with me, Niece, and Jack Graham of the Minot Daily News, which, by the way, has never been heard, seen. There's no transcript of it that exists in the world. We don't even know whether that actually exists at all. Falcon said he kept a list of the demons of hell on him, and to gain power over people, to put a curse on them, he'd go out and bury shit on their lawns. He thought this was some black magic curse. He was a Satanist. These demons he kept a list of, would they include Behemoth and Beelzebub, I asked? Those were two of them. And this excrement, was it dog manure? Yeah. This information provided two more links between Carr and the Son of Sam letters. Falcon said that John Carr was very much into Satanism and that John read my entire collection of occult books, How to Make the Amulets to the Third Eye. Falcon went on to say that Carr belonged to cults in both Minot and Westchester County, New York, an important confirmation of our suspicions. He described the New York group as very violent, large, and underground. They were really into the occult. They'd all get together in like a witch's coven, a witch's church. Their sacrifices went all the way. Carr, Falcon said. John? Do you have
No, but I just I didn't chuckle. I'm just amazed when I see this stuff. That's all.
Right, exactly. Carr, Falcon said, practiced some satanic rituals in Minot with Donnie Boone, whom Falcon didn't know was dead. I came to my house, and here were Donnie and John. Falcon explained in describing one ritual. When I walked in the door, they were in the kitchen, and Donnie had this animal, whatever it was. He had cut its throat, and it was bleeding all over the kitchen. He was going to take it into the other room there. There was a magic circle drawn, and they were sacrificing it. Old Donnie Boone was drinking the animal's blood. It was running down his chin. Falcon said he put a stop to the ritual and threw Carr and Boone out of his house. Quote, it was an unbelievable mess to clean up. So, John, of course, we're going to get to this, but this implies here that Donnie Boone was like a good friend of all of these guys. Like what do you get the impression of Donnie Boone here reading this?
Yeah, I mean, you would think that this was something they did quite on the regular. They were Satanists. They were good friends, and they were all in this little cult together.
Right. He calls him here old Donnie Boone. So we'll look at that a little later, because the whole Donnie Boone issue is going to become quite significant in our story today. Phil Falcon made a significant statement. He never called him David or Dave. I didn't know it was Berkowitz. He just used to talk about his friend Berkey in Yonkers. So as Berkowitz knew Carr's nickname, so did Carr know Berkowitz's, one of which was in fact Berkey. So anyway, this is all about how he heard about Berkowitz. Carr was talking about Berkowitz earlier, and so on and so forth. So, and then of course here is Falcon talking about Carr's guns. So along those lines, Tom Taylor said that he personally picked up and examined 44 caliber ammunition in Carr's Minot apartment. They were Winchesters, he said. He also stated that Carr had a large handgun, although he wasn't certain it was a 44 or 45, as he hadn't actually held it, but I never saw any 45 ammo around. Phil Falcon also said that Carr owned either a 44 or a 45. By the way, those are two extremely different looking guns. So it's weird that someone would get those two confused, but that's another story. So to recap. So according to Maury, Falcon confirmed John's nickname was Wheaties. John, do we agree on that?
I agree.
Okay. Falcon confirmed that John was a practicing hardcore Satanist.
Yes.
Any arguments? I mean,
Nope.
Okay. Falcon confirmed that John Carr was intimately involved in an animal sacrifice. Okay, so remember, this is all according to Maury. Falcon confirmed that John knew Berkowitz and spoke about him a lot.
That's correct.
And Falcon confirmed that John Carr had guns, particularly a large handgun.
Well, he went even further. Maury said that Falcon confirmed he had a 44.
Correct.
So, yeah. Yes, correct.
Correct, exactly. So now, well, it's time to listen to the testimony of Phil Falcon. Now, just for everybody's sake out there, Phil Falcon's tapes there's 3 tapes. There's almost an hour and a half of audio. Quite a bit of it was not pertinent to our discussion. Okay, so what we did was we edited out only that which applied to our discussion. This, of course, is going to open up me and John to arguments of selective editing. So I want to put out to the audience, particularly the people out there who want to fact check me, fact check John Catalano, pretend that we are liars and that we're manipulating like Maury did. I'm putting out the challenge to please find anything in the tapes that we did not add to today's discussion that proves anything to the contrary of what we're talking about. If you can find that, we will have you on the show. We will cut our mics off, and you can have our entire audience to show your point and to show how we lied and manipulated. Okay. But
Maybe,
yeah.
Manny, Dave Moth is worth his weight in gold tonight. We did leave one out, and we spoke about it a lot. That Falcon confirmed Carr belonged to cults in North Dakota and Westchester, and they were violent and went all the way.
Right.
Good
So
catch, Dave. Thank you.
no. We spoke about that. We had that in our thing. So
No, I think we left it off the list.
Oh, off the recap list.
Yeah,
right.
Yes.
Okay, well, but on the recap we had that he was a practicing hardcore Satanist. So 6 of one, half a dozen of another. So thanks, Dave. But yes. So again, I want to put that out there that we did edit this tape just for because we didn't want to be here for 5 hours tonight. And if anybody can find anything proving us wrong, we will be glad to have you on. That's our challenge to the audience, and also to keep us honest, because even though we know what we did, we don't necessarily want you to trust us. We want you to verify. So of course, research takes responsibility, guys, and there's work that you need to do on your own.
The full audio is available, so they can go and verify.
They can go and verify everything. And you and I did have discussions, John, about this, about taking stuff out and leaving some things out. And you and I decided that just in the interest of time and focus, that we would just concentrate on a few things to prove Maury wrong. Am I accurately?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, we got Trudy Zeke in the audience. Yay. Trudy, what are you doing here? I thought you were dead, Trudy. So anyway, all right. So Falcon's testimony. All right. So you guys all know that I like to be very thorough. So before we get into the actual meat and potatoes, let's go through a few little excerpts of basically Falcon essentially just talking about John Carr as a person. I think this is going to be good to set the stage a little bit. So let's listen to this. And John, if you want to talk or comment, please just tell me to stop and I'll stop it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So here we go.
Most of the time he played it really straight, I didn't really get to know him until about his last maybe 2 months in service. Mm-hmm. He started hanging around my coffee house quite a bit, and, he was getting out, short-timer, and trying to establish a rapport with the community again, and he was really weird.
What do you mean he was weird? What was weird about him?
Well, I don't know. First of all, you might take offense to this being from New York, but city slickers just do not get trusted in the country. Mm-hmm. Especially people with New York or New Jersey accents, He's left over from the Brooklyn days, and you see the Dirty 30s and all the hoodlums with flush like that, and North Dakota is clandestine. It's a very small population and tight-knit. Most of the time you grew up with everybody else in their door,
Oh, just because he talks funny doesn't make him weird.
No, but...
What did he do that was weird?
He was just like, I don't know, he couldn't handle any of the women.
All right. So basically, John, hold on one second here. Oh, I'm having some issues. Hold on. Give me a second. So that doesn't sound to me like a guy who was like knows John Carr very often. It sounded like he just kind of met the dude, like a month or two before he left town. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, you hear him say, "Oh, he used to come by my coffee house." Like I said, I think Falcon was the local guy, and these guys just popped in here and there. And I'm not saying eventually they didn't bond some kind of a friendship, but it certainly isn't what Maury leads you to believe in the ultimate evil.
Yeah, Maury leads us to believe that he had all this intimate knowledge of John Carr, and here he is telling the actual law enforcement agents, and they threatened him at the beginning of this conversation. They were like, "If you lie to us, we're coming out there and we're going to grab you and bring you to New York." Yeah. So chances are he was telling these guys the whole truth. So let's listen to a little bit more of what this guy had to say about John.
Most of the time he played it really straight, I didn't really get to know him until about his last maybe 2 months in service. Mm-hmm. He started hanging around my coffee house quite a bit, and he was getting out, short-timer, and trying to establish a rapport with the community again, and he's really weird.
Well,
I mean,
what do you mean he was weird? What was weird about him?
well, I don't know. First of all, you might take offense to this being from New York, but City Slick is...
I played this one already. Duh. Give me a second, guys. Let me get another the right one. I apologize profusely for that. So here he is saying that here. This is a good one.
I don't even know if to talk to girls. You know, I know he tried, but I don't know. There's something about his character that just prevented people from getting anywhere near close to him. You know, he was just so odd and eccentric.
So there he is saying that he was odd, eccentric, that people couldn't get close to him, but somehow or other he was involved in a huge conspiracy with 20 other people to do satanic rituals called Son of Sam. So here he is talking about Carr's drug use.
You met him at a party with mutual friends.
Yeah.
What kind of guy was he at that time? He was still in the service, right?
Yeah. I don't know, it's kind of hard to pin. Yeah, I mean, you know, any sort of a real label on.
Well, was he straight? Was he on anything?
Well, the cat was always on something, you know. I got that impression from him from day one. You know, I'm a smoker, a joker, midnight toker, and whatever else you can find me.
Well, what was he doing? Was he doing acid? Was he doing angel dust?
Acid, dust, mescaline, just about anything you could find. You know?
How about heroin or coke?
Coke, yeah. Heroin, I don't know about. There was coke around, but most of the junkies were in the closet yet, you know. North Dakota's a pretty straight place.
So he was doing hallucinogens mostly?
Yeah.
Because the ones you mentioned, they're all hallucinogens.
Yeah, mostly hallucinogens, a lot of smoke, and I guess speed every once in a while, you know, like when he had to work and stuff, but he wasn't a speed rush guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean,
well,
I don't know if he was poking himself or not, you know.
So it kind of confirmed what we were talking about with Tom Turkey, that Carr was a pretty heavy user of drugs. I don't think someone like that would be trusted by an international cult to be an accomplice in shooting, but that's just my editorial comment. And of course, here is Falcon talking about Carr's drug dealing.
Now, after he got out of the service, what was he doing to make a living?
Dropping a little drugs here and there. Living on his service severance pay, I guess.
Yeah, nothing lasts forever. Was he pushing anything up there?
Oh, he dealt little drugs, but it was like nickel dime shit, you know.
What was he pushing?
Pot, a little speed.
Where was he getting it from?
I have no
idea. A
idea.
local source or an out-of-town source?
Huh?
Local source out of town?
I believe it was out of town.
You don't know where, though?
No.
Now,
so basically, what's the impression you're getting of John Carr from Phil Falcon's testimony?
Yeah, I mean, like like a lot of drug users, he was probably dealing a little drugs to support his own habit. He doesn't seem like a social butterfly. John Carr sounds very antisocial to me,
right,
from this description. Certainly doesn't seem like the leader of a gang or a drug cartel or a cult. And they didn't seem to have the ideal friendship either.
Right. They didn't seem all that close. He seemed like, to me, it seemed like Falcon kept this guy at arm's length for sure. I mean, that's the impression I'm getting. Certainly not someone that's going to know intimate details about this guy's life. So our next topic, of course, now gets into the actual forensics, the issues that Maury brings up. And of course, the biggie is, of course, the nickname Wheaties. Okay. Now, there's a big controversy right now going on in Son of Sam land because we are the first people to say the Emperor has no clothes, that John Carr's nickname was, in fact, not Wheaties. There's no proof of it in the real world. Berkowitz found the name John Wheat in the phone book. He conflated two people and turned them into one. And then over time, John Wheat became John Wheaties because Berkowitz just was kind of trolling the guy. But what was interesting about these tapes, John, is that we don't have any audio about about this. Why? I mean, were you able to find any place in these tapes where he confirms that this nickname was Wheaties?
No, not at all.
So that's basically that. We don't have any audio to play you because there was literally in over an hour and a half, there was not one shred of audio, not even 1 second of audio where Phil Falcon confirms that the nickname was Wheaties. And I know what people are going to say. Oh, but he confirmed it to Maury. Well,
Right. Well, then why didn't he confirm it to Lifer? You know?
Right. And also this tape of Maury's, is it in the room with us now? Where is this tape? Where does it exist? Who has seen the transcript of it? I can't trust that Maury actually told the truth about this because he's lied about so many things. So in the absence of actual evidence, and Maury's word is not good enough, I personally am calling bullshit on Phil Falcon confirming that his nickname was Wheaties.
He absolutely did not confirm that John's nickname was Wheaties. I don't know where Maury got the Wheaties patch story from, because I can't find anything about that. It certainly wasn't on Falcon's tape. So,
right.
You know, as I said before, this is like an ongoing pattern of every topic. I compare what Maury said in the book to what's really said in these interviews.
Exactly. And let's just say that Maury did have this conversation with him that we've never heard, that there's no transcript of. Or here he's saying on one of his jackets, he even had a patch with a Wheaties box sewn on the shoulder, Falcon said. Okay, well,
Falcon was so descriptive to him, but when he was talking to Light, he didn't mention that.
He didn't even sound like he knew this guy from a hole in the wall, basically. He had just met him like a little bit. He
made it sound like they had a very arm's length kind of friendship. John would pop in the coffee shop. They came by his house a few times. I mean, he didn't act like they were strangers, but certainly they weren't best of friends. And it doesn't appear that he knew him a very long time.
Right. And certainly not enough time to be looking at his wardrobe to know what patches he had sewn on this jacket. I'm calling bullshit on this. There's absolutely no evidence whatsoever where Falcon said this. And just because Maury said it in the book doesn't mean anything to me, because we've already caught Maury in a million lies.
And Wheaties also denied it. I know nobody believes Carr, but I asked her, and she said John's nickname was never Wheaties.
Right, exactly. And we have never found anybody in Yonkers except for the usher who in 2021 told Neo that he was bullshitting me because he just wanted to mess with me. That's the only guy who ever told me that John's nickname was Wheaties, and it came out a decade, 2 decades later almost, that he was lying. So we're getting closer and closer to the money shot, the satanic ritual. But before we get there, John Carr's guns. Okay, so of course here we have a very, very clear and unequivocal statement. Phil Falcon also said that Carr owned either a 44 or a 45. Okay, there's no mistaking what he says here. This is reported. It's one sentence long. It's pretty cut and dry. So why don't we just listen to what Phil Falcon had to say about these so-called guns?
John liked guns.
Did he what?
Have guns.
Have
guns, you know.
Trust?
No, did he have any?
I don't know.
Any guns on? Did he ever carry a gun?
Yeah.
What did he carry?
I don't remember.
Handgun or
handgun?
Handgun? Automatic or revolver?
Revolver.
Short or long barrel?
It wasn't a short barrel, not a really short barrel, but it wasn't like Wyatt or Bunting either.
You grew up your whole life in that area, right?
What's that?
You spent your whole life up there, right?
Right.
You've seen lots of guns, right?
Well, a fair number.
All right. What did he have?
I don't know. You know, most of the guns we see are shotguns and 30-06s and shit, you know. I mean, handguns are pretty much out in North Dakota.
Well, was it what he carried in his pocket? Did he have a shoulder holster?
He had it in his van.
Had it in his van? Remember, was it large caliber or small caliber?
It was like like a 38, sort of just a regular pistol with a revolving barrel and a medium-sized front end.
How long would you say the front end was?
God, I don't know.
How many inches?
5 inches, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
So not only does he not say 44 or 45, he says he doesn't have a freaking clue and that it could have been a 38. John, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean it's just like it's just stuff. I see stuff like this every time you ask me to come on and talk about this stuff. I go back to the book and I compare it to what the interviews actually say, and when you read that part in the Ultimate Evil, you say, wow, Phil Falcon confirmed he had a 44 or a 45, but it was probably a 44. I mean, that's the impression that I got.
Exactly. Right? Maury doesn't have to say anything. He just implies, and then he allows you to fill in those blanks.
Right.
But
and his other trick is the omission. Anytime information contrary to his thesis presents itself, it's omitted. So he never mentioned that Falcon mistakenly said it might have been a 38.
Right. Or
the 44 he was describing. He just glanced right by that. Just like he glanced by things that were said in the Lomino Demasi report, just like he glanced by things that were in the Voskarician report. I mean, every subject we cover, it's the same pattern.
It is unbelievable. And he also omitted that basically Falcon was like, I don't know, man. I mean, he just had no clue.
Right.
So again, this one is a good one. Let me just quickly just cue up the audio real quick, my friend. Give me a second here, and then we'll get right to this. There we go. All right. So what are we talking about here? John Carr and David Berkowitz. Now we're starting to get to the real money shots. We're getting to the so-called friendship between Carr and Berkey, and of course the pièce de résistance, the famous satanic hardcore satanic animal sacrifice ritual that John Carr was involved with. But of course, before we get there, we have to get to this whole thing about Dave Berkowitz and John Carr knowing each other. Phil Falcon made a significant statement. He never called him David or Dave. I didn't know it was Berkowitz. He just used to talk about his friend Berkey in Yonkers. So as Berkowitz knew Carr's nickname, so did Carr knows Berkowitz's, one of which was in fact Berkey. All right, so we just have to listen to the audio. I mean, this is pretty easy to do, guys. This is not very hard. We just find what's in the book and then listen to the tape, and then we compare the two. Let's listen to what Falcon said about John Carr and David Berkowitz.
Let me ask you this. Did you ever hear John mention anything about David Berkowitz?
David Berkowitz. No.
You know who he is, don't you?
The Son of Sam guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever hear anything about him mentioned by John or his friend, Steve?
About who?
About Berkowitz. Did John or Steve ever mention?
I don't think I've ever heard them ever mention Berkowitz. I just...
He just said straight up he never heard of them ever mentioning David Berkowitz. And then here in The Ultimate Evil, he's talking about Berkey and Yonkers. I didn't know it was Berkowitz. It was Berkey, his friend Berkey. I mean, John, talk to me about this.
I mean, could you imagine, if Falcon would have said that to Leifer, Leifer might have flew to New York and went to see Berkowitz immediately. These guys wanted to bring a case, Manny. I know people don't believe that, but Santucci was egging them on to find something. So could you imagine, if Falcon would have actually said that to him, they would have been excited is an understatement.
Absolutely.
It never happened. It was never said. I don't know where he got the stones to put that in print. Maybe he, thought nobody would ever find out. Maybe he thought no one would care, no one would sue him.
Well, listen, man.
Big shot.
It
but
gets
by printing, out and out lies. And
just a total out and out lie.
yeah.
And it gets even worse. And now this isn't Phil Falcon's tape. This is a little aside that I want to take, but it bespeaks of the same exact issue that we just had with Phil Falcon, David Berkowitz, and John Carr. This is a conversation that we actually did cover when we covered the Maury tapes on our show about almost a year ago now on our roundtable, which I believe you were a part of, John.
Yeah.
But this is a little excerpt from the Maury tape where the same guy who was just talking to Phil Falcon is talking to Maury, and he's bringing up the fact, well, let's just have the audience listen to this.
Oh, Berkowitz was in North Dakota on a couple of occasions.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have that?
Nope. I've never had David in North Dakota.
Okay, well, according to what I saw, he was.
When you say according to what you saw,
Heard.
no, without telling me what you saw,
Written correspondence.
from David to another person,
Yeah.
from North Dakota,
From David to another person.
saying he was there.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any period of time?
No period of time. No period of time.
I mean, because you know that you were there, and nobody identified him as being there.
Wasn't really asked of anybody except Taylor, and he squirmed all over the place on it. Okay?
Which our guys did.
Okay.
And
Well,
you know, they even had pictures of him.
and what?
They had pictures of David.
Yeah.
And nobody ever, or everyone they went to, they asked.
Mm-hmm.
Linda, Craig, the school, Jeffrey, Darlene, Leslie, I don't recall who else they saw.
Well, remember, Lyndon Craig didn't enter into the picture until late.
But all those people were showing pictures and no one ever saw.
Okay. I'm just telling you what...
Manny.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So for all the folks at home, they went around and showed Berkowitz's picture to everybody in North Dakota that had a connection to John Carr. And not one of them, not a single one of them, identified and said, yes, he was in North Dakota.
Not a single solitary soul. Not one out of every person they asked. And John, you know as well as I do that Maury told the exact opposite in the book. He said everybody ID'd Berkowitz out there.
Yeah, well, he actually tried to tell Lifer that until Lifer had to explain life to him.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I suggest people go and listen to that Maury tape in full because they shoot him down like you wouldn't believe. They treat him like he's mentally ill. And for good reason, because he was sending them on a wild goose chase that ended up turning up absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that's interested in the case, or anybody that, even people that love the Ultimate Evil book, that website and these interviews are a treasure trove. They're enjoyable because you're interested in the subject, and I don't know why everybody hasn't listened to every one of them. They're great.
The people who are avoiding these tapes like the plague are the people who believe in the cult story. It's unbelievable how not one of them has actually listened to this stuff.
It's weird.
John,
all these characters that you read about come to life. You could hear their voices, their responses, and you're going to form your opinion regardless on the facts. So
this is in true crime history, in my opinion, in the modern era, this is the most important trove of evidence that has ever been released in any case whatsoever. And the beautiful thing about the Queen's DA stuff is that it's all about the so-called conspiracy, because they were going out and investigating Maury Terry's claims. There is not one shred of evidence in these files that proves Maury's claims. In fact, quite the opposite. So
I don't know. I don't know if I don't know what John Santucci's motives were. If he had aspiring to be mayor or attorney general of New York, but we might have to do a little investigation on that, because for whatever reason he bought Maury's story hook, line, and sinker, and he wanted to make a go of it. And you could see that Lifer and his guys, Armiente and the other investigator, they tried, and they tried to get information, and they did a real investigation.
They did, and in fact, the tapes that we're about to hear, which are going to be a little bit meaty, long, and dense, show a lifer in Armenti really trying to get to the bottom of everything and failing miserably. And it's not because they were bad investigators. There was nothing at all to find out.
It was beating a dead horse, right?
Exactly, they were beating a dead horse, and the biggest dead horse to beat, in my opinion, was the whole idea of John Carr as a hardcore Satanist. So I'm putting out there. So we're asking the question: was he in fact a hardcore Satanist? So just as we found out that John Carr's nickname was in fact not Wheaties, I personally, I'm not speaking for John here. John can speak for himself, but I am putting out, because I already know the punchline here. You guys are going to learn the punchline in a little while when you listen to the tapes. But I'm putting out the proclamation that John Carr had absolutely no hardcore interest in Satanism whatsoever. He was not part of a cult. He was not part of a coven. He certainly wasn't doing rituals in Untermeyer Park or any of this kind of stuff. And the reason why is because of what we're about to hear. John, do you have anything to add before we read the reread these passages and listen to the tapes?
Yeah, I'm going to say that I 100% believe he dabbled.
Me too.
I don't know that he was involved with the process. I haven't really seen anything that connected him to Untermeyer except for Brother John's testimony, which is kind of hard to swallow because he tells so many tales about famous crimes throughout history. He's like the Forrest Gump of everything dark.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't say that it was beneath him, but I just don't think to the extent that Maury portrayed his occult participation. I don't think it was as much as Maury wanted us to think. I certainly think he was a very important cult leader in Westchester.
No, exactly. And let's look at what Maury had to say. We're not going to read every little passage here, but Falcon went on to say that Carr belonged to cults in both Minot and Westchester County. All right, so there's one quote fact. All right, that Carr was a member of cults in both. He said that the New York cult was very violent, large, and underground. He said that the Westchester group convened both indoors and outdoors. Here he is talking about the satanic ritual in his house. I came to my house, and here were Donnie and John. Falcon explained, when I walked in the door, they were in the kitchen, and Donnie had this animal, whatever it was. He had cut its throat. They were going to take it to the other room. There was a magic circle, and so on and so forth. So it's pretty unequivocal. In The Ultimate Evil, Maury Terry describes John Carr as a hardcore practicing Satanist that did satanic rituals that went all the way. And the implication, of course, John, was that all the way meant human sacrifice. I mean, that's what I got out of the book. So I think it behooves us to listen to two tapes. Okay, so these are going to be the longest tapes that we listen to, but this is the most important stuff, in my opinion, of tonight. Yeah, of course, we learned that he never heard of David Berkowitz, that John Carr's nickname was not Wheaties. He had no idea what kind of guns he used. So let's listen to some of the things that Phil Falcon says about this hardcore Satanistic ritual in his house. Let's listen to this, and everybody just relax, get yourselves set, because we got a little bit of tapes to get through here. And of course, John, anytime you need to comment, please stop me, and I'll do the same.
Okay.
Now, I understand that John had some weird occupations.
Occupation?
Yeah. Like devils and dogs.
Oh, no, I don't know what the hell he was into. I really don't.
I don't know what he was into. Maury has him as a practicing hardcore Satanist belonging to a huge violent coven that's underground, and their sacrifices went all the way.
Yeah, so, right. Maury has Falcon providing all of this information. Yeah. And Falcon doesn't know what he was into.
He doesn't know what he's into. All right, let's carry on.
It's not even close, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He ran into some other folks, and between all of them, they're all fucked up.
Well, tell me about it.
I agree with that.
Well, I lived with a guy who thought he was a witch.
What was his name?
Barry Dosenko.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we have to stop here because Barry Dosenko is a very important person to the moron. Who's Barry Dosenko?
According to them, Barry Dosenko is the trigger man of Stacy Moskowitz, Robert Violante.
Right. Barry Dosenko was a shooter in Son of Sam, particularly of just like John said, Stacy and Robert. And these people to this day still continue to talk about Barry Dosenko. All right, so let's carry on.
And his mother's a witch, and his father was a witch, and his grandparents were witches.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's for this culture, it's kind of a weird trip. For his own, I guess he's right in tune. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, he uses what's called white witchcraft. You know, you do good shit for good folks, and you run around like a Tinkerbell person.
Barry Dosenko was a white witch.
Yeah.
He did good things for good folks, and he ran around like a Tinkerbell.
Providing herbal tea.
Yeah, but he shot Robert Violante and Stacy Moskowitz.
Yeah, so far there's just no mention of Barry being a Satanist.
Correct. All right, let's carry it on.
Okay, he got this guy out of a state mental institution in Florida. And this cat was really a never land. He,
When did this happen?
oh God. That same winter, early in the winter.
What year?
76.
And what was this cat's name?
Donnie Boone.
He was in a mental institution in Florida somewhere.
Right.
And
So Donnie Boone. All right, so he just introduced the character of Donnie Boone. So Donnie Boone, according to Phil Falcon, was a mental patient who Barry Dosenko got out of an institution somewhere and brought him to live with them. But in the book here, I don't know. The implication is that Donnie Boone was an integral part of this entire operation. In my house were Donnie and John, right? Like this makes it seem like they were like best friends.
Yeah, it does.
But meanwhile, we're learning in this tape that this guy was a mental patient who just entered the scene like you know a minute before. So let's carry on. This is quite interesting.
your friend, what was his name again?
Barry Dosenko.
Spell that, will you?
Dossanko.
Dosenko. What was his first name? Barry, you say?
Barry.
Yeah. And he got Boone out of the nut house in Florida.
Yeah.
And he brought him up to mine house.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Donnie didn't get any better. For a while, you know, he was, I don't know, he was coherent, he was back, you know, talking with people again and things and actually communicating, and then he withdrew into his own little world and, started talking about weird shit and making crosses out of things and, just generally fucking up my house.
Mm-hmm.
He also lost, all cognitive speech patterns. He'd rain on about things about this medicine woman who told him to climb Magic Mountain and all kinds of shit.
What did he have to do with John Carr?
Well, he and John Carr and Barry and Carr's friend from.
I'm sorry, what? And right, Steve.
It's really scary. I need to get a life. I can
New York.
tell you the whole story. Steve.
Right? They were all in
That's
my
this guy
apartment.
Steve.
Huh?
This guy Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, they were all in my apartment that evening.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you that, you know, it was late afternoon I came home, and later on Barry came in and shit. And they started their voodoo bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Right, calling demons from the graves and shit. And, that's what they all had to do. That's what their common denominator is. They're all weird.
Mm-hmm. And what happened?
Well, I left in there, Pookie hooky-pooky and went over to my coffee house.
Yeah, but something happened. When you came.
Okay, so now we're going to find out what happened. So just to recap, from this tape, Barry Dosenko was a white witch, right?
Yes.
He was a Tinkerbell character. He was he loved to go around and do good for people. So that's a far cry from what the morons are talking about Barry Dosenko calling him the murderer of Stacy Moskowitz. We also learned that Donnie Boone was a mental patient from Florida who was brought up there, who wasn't really part of this group, who was just brought up there by Barry Dosenko. And then we learned that something took place in Phil Falcon's house, and now we are going to listen to in full a 17-minute long interview with Armienti, Michael Armienti, and Phil Falcon, going into great detail about this this so-called satanic ritual. The only thing that's weird about this tape for me, it starts out with Herb saying, "Here's my friend Herb," and then Armienti gets on. It's kind of weird. Yeah, that's a little strange to me.
They were being wise asses. I guess he didn't want to give his name. He didn't want to give Armienti's name. But just one other thing.
Yeah.
Anybody interested? The only reason why they were at Falcon's house was because Falcon and Dosenko actually were roommates.
Right.
So Falcon kind of walked in on that. It's not as if they were all at Falcon's house like that. That was the regular hangout. They were there.
Right.
Dosenko was his roommate.
Right. Dosenko
lived there also.
Right. Dosenko brings in this guy, Donnie Boone, who was unknown to the rest of them, including John Carr, even though Maury makes it seem like they're best friends in satanic rituals together in the book.
Right. Why is everyone at Falcon's house doing a ritual? You know, there's a reason why they were there. Because Barry was there, and Donnie lived there, and John Carr was hanging out there. So.
Right, and there's a lot of subtleties that Maury Terry left out, which are extremely important, and which now we are all going to learn. So everybody sit back, relax, let's listen to this tape. It's extremely important true crime history. And John, of course, whenever you need me to stop, just yell out stop.
Okay. All right, his name is Herb. Here he is.
Yeah, Phil.
Yeah.
What I'm really interested in is any occult discussions you may have had with John, and any occult practices you may have had in New York. Okay. And I'm really not interested in all that other aspect of John Carr's life with drugs and things like that.
I have never been in New York, man.
No, I realize that. But he may have discussed it with you.
Oh, John, you mean?
Yeah. In other words, what I'd like to start with you is the point in which you first realized that John Carr was involved in the occult in Minot. Do you remember how that came about?
Yeah, him and his friend were sitting in my living room.
Okay, this is Steve.
Yeah.
Okay, this person.
So it cuts off for a second, guys. I didn't edit this. This is just the way it is on the tape, and so I didn't want to edit it and get called a
selective editor.
A selective editor like Maury. So this is just the way it is on the tape. Okay, it goes from tape 2 to tape 3.
John Carr, Steve, Barry Dosenko.
Who?
Barry Dosenko.
Barry Dosenko?
Right, and Donnie Boone.
Okay, where's Dosenko now?
He's farming in North Dakota.
He's farming in North Dakota? You know where in North Dakota?
Butte.
Excuse me?
Butte, North Dakota.
Oh, hold on a second. Okay, I want to get a pen. Look, the rubber pen. Okay, that's Dosenko?
Dosenko. D-O-S-S-A-N-K-O.
I'm sorry?
D-O-S-S-A-N-K-O.
Okay. And what's the name of that town?
Butte. B-U-T-T-E.
How far is that from Leonard?
About 70 miles.
Okay. Okay, so DeSanko and who's that other person that was with Steve and John?
I'm sorry, the truck is passing here.
Okay. Okay.
Go ahead.
Who was that other person that was with Steve and John?
Donnie Boone.
Okay, where's Donnie Boone now?
Arizona someplace.
You don't know where?
Don't know where.
Okay. All right, so you walked in and the four of them were in the house.
Right.
Right, what were they doing?
Talking.
You know what?
When I walked in, they were talking.
You know what they were talking about?
I walked in the house, and Donnie Boone had just fashioned a big cross. I had a couple sculpture projects or classes in school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to hurry up and finish up some sculptures out of plaster Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And Donnie had gotten into my school supplies, which were in the kitchen.
Right.
And had plaster Paris all over the kitchen, all over himself, all over the living room. He'd made a big cross and covered with red paint.
Okay. Was the cross upside down or right side up?
Well, the cross is right side up when I first got there.
Uh-huh.
Later on, I found out it was their ceremony cross. So, anyway, I walked into the kitchen, and the first thing I saw was Donnie Boone covered with red with this cross.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I knew the guy was a fruit, and I figured he'd just fucking cut his throat or something, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I was really, hey, what's going on, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, I made a cross, and then I got pissed, because he had all my shit out, and fucking red paint all over and shit.
So wait a second, I had to stop. It's fucking red paint, not even blood.
I was going to say, Maury missed an opportunity for a little drama. He could have put, and the blood and the cross was dripping blood in the living room.
Yeah. So far, it's just been red paint and guys talking. Okay, so let's carry on.
So,
You didn't know they were in your house. They just walked in?
huh?
They just walked into your house without your permission?
No, where's Barry DeSanko and I?
Do you want to say anything?
Was Armiente listening to the whole conversation he had with Lifer? They're constantly making him repeat this story.
I know.
Maybe that's a tactic. I don't
But
know.
if you think about it, that's smart because, yeah, that's probably a tactic because just to see if he would give different stories. But he was remarkably consistent. But it's only in Maury's testimony, which, of course, the world has never seen a transcript or heard of, where he's contradicting it 180 degrees.
So frustrating.
It's just like Cecilia Davis all over again. It's unbelievable. All right, let's carry it on.
We're renting the house together.
I see.
But he was hardly ever there, and I was hardly ever there.
Uh-huh.
He was working at his farm, I was at school.
Right.
His hired hand, this Donnie Boone, stayed at the house most of the time with another fellow who was my roommate.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so anyhow, I came home and he was doing this bullshit, making this cross for these guys, and they're in my living room rapping, right? So I went in and smoked a couple joints and said howdy and shit, and found out that this is this Steve guy from New York, and he come to visit, and they were going to have some sort of a hodgepodge call them out of the depths sort of thing. What's the hell they call it? Seance sort of affair. And I went upstairs and took my bath and got ready for my bullshit that night. You know, I had to work at the coffee house. I came back downstairs and they had cut up this cat. And I had fucking blood all over my kitchen floor and the living room. And I said, no, this is fucking about it, man. You know.
All right, so now we get the cat involved. It was a squirrel in the book. Now it's a cat, but at least now we have a living, breathing animal involved.
Was it? Did he say a squirrel in the book?
I believe he did say it was squirrel in the book. So, all right, so let's continue on. And so far, Donnie Boone is the instigator of all of this. I haven't heard John Carr's name once mentioned in this, except he was present.
It's funny how Falcon says he was in a nut house in Florida.
Yeah. All right, let's carry on.
And take your shit and get. I don't give a fuck who you are. And Barry got mad. Barry is a white witch.
Barry
Barry
Sanko?
DeSanko, the guy from North Dakota.
Right.
You know, like he wouldn't fucking kill a mouse. Much.
So now Barry wouldn't kill a mouse. He was a white witch, and he was mad at this ritual.
Apparently, this Barry was like an earthy, smoke my pot, you know, mix my little potions.
Yeah.
I don't understand how they could tag this guy as an occultist murderer, and other people describe him like 180 degrees to the opposite.
Total opposite. It's unbelievable.
It's so hard to understand this whole thing, man.
All right, let's carry on because I have a feeling it's going to get worse and worse.
With a dog or something. His family has been witches for generations, and they've always been white witches. You know, it's God's guardian angel sort of guy. So anyhow, he got upset at this other nonsense, and so anyhow, we both left. I went to the coffee house, and I think he took his chick or something.
Okay, what was the setting like when they were cutting, when you came back down the second time? How was that cross?
I don't know. I had some large brass candelabrums that I brought back from Vietnam. And they were sitting like on a table. I think they just lit those fuckers and started into it. I don't know.
What did they say? I mean, do you remember any conversations they had centering around this ceremony?
Well, I came in when they started their little chant on, I don't know, in fucking Latin or whatever it was. They had a book out in front of them, you know, throwing out some bullshit there.
Right.
I couldn't even understand the language. It could have been Greek.
Did they say anything in English?
No, this Steve guy, fucking, when I told him he could take his shit and get, you know, he told me he was going to put a spell on me, that he had some of my hair. And, I just fucking laughed at the dude, you know, because, I'm in India, and I told him, you know, your fucking white man hocus pocus shit just don't work on Indians. No more than my Indian things work on you. So just forget it, and then we left.
Do you know, did John Carr ever talk about that again?
No. He asked me what I thought of Steve, and I told him I thought the dude sucked. And we never talked about him again after.
What about this witchcraft stuff?
I never saw John fuck with that at all.
Before or afterwards?
Just that one time.
That's huge.
Yeah, I mean...
Didn't he say in the book that he was a member of a large practicing violent underground cult whose witchcraft went all the way and sacrifices went all the way? And
yes,
he just said,
and in North Dakota.
He just said literally that he never saw John screw around with any of this stuff before or after.
Okay, so Hannah just said in the chat that DeSanko in his interview said he left. Nobody's saying you have to believe any of these people, but we're talking about when we compare what we were told in The Ultimate Evil that they said to Maury, they never seem to say to Lifer or to Armiente. So, you know, you're free to believe or not believe all of these people. That's a little bit beside the point.
Right, and also like these things are ultimately kind of insignificant. Like if Falcon didn't remember who left at what particular time, to me it's not a significant detail. The significant detail is that he never heard Berkowitz's name. He never saw John Carr do any of this occult stuff. Donnie Boone was the instigator of this whole so-called ritual. And those are the bigger things. But Hannah's a good viewer, and it is good that these things are said, because it also means, John, that our viewership is actually listening to the tapes, which is super important.
I mean, sometimes you have to take things with a grain. I don't think any of these people are upstanding citizens.
Neither do I.
They say.
In fact, I think Phil Falcon's being evasive in these tapes about his own personal, life and history. I just don't think it has anything to do with Son of Sam.
Very possible. You know what would be ideal, Manny? If Maury Terry would have played his tapes when he interviewed Falcon. instead of keeping everything under his bed in a box,
Right.
and using pseudonyms and hiding evidence from everyone, maybe he should have enlightened us. But we only have what we have.
Right.
And that's that's what we use. Right.
If this tape ever comes out of Phil Falcon telling a different story, I'll be the first person to put it on the air.
Same here.
And we'll have another one of these shows. Yeah. So let's carry on.
Do you ever talk about it?
So just remember, for context, Falcon just said that John Carr never spoke about the occult, never was into the occult before or after. That's the conversation that's happening right now.
In the end of his, John became really incoherent at the end of our acquaintance.
Right.
I mean, really incoherent, like a fucking babbling idiot. And the shit that he said, none of it made any sense. Most of the time, I just didn't listen. I'd just be polite and say, "Oh, good, have some tea or something."
Did he ever talk about this occult or witch stuff having taken place in New York?
No.
Did he ever talk about participating in it in New York?
He never talked about any of that shit ever.
Mm-hmm.
All the time.
Direct contradiction to what Maury said. Direct. It couldn't be more contradictory to what Maury said in the book.
Yep.
And these are the issues that we're having.
Time I knew him.
It was just that one time.
Just that one time.
But this guy Barry DeSanko, he would know a lot about it, though.
Well, I don't know. Barry only met those cats a couple times too,
But I mean these practices. You
said it's just practice. Oh. There's a difference between keeping catalogs on herbs and shit, for canker sores, and cutting open dogs and calling
the glory stuff.
Devils from the earth and shit.
Yeah, is that the kind of stuff that DeSanko's involved in?
Yeah, he was more like an herb guy,
Uh-huh. Oh, he was more like an herb guy?
Yeah, Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the extent of his white witchcraft.
So you were surprised to see him cut up the cat?
What?
You were surprised to see him?
Yeah. Well, Barry didn't do it.
Who did it?
Yeah.
Who's Donnie?
Fucking Donnie Boone.
Yes.
Just as a side note.
Yeah.
If you listen, for the people that listen to the DeSanko interview, they didn't leave off on great terms, Falcon and DeSanko. They weren't enemies, but apparently Falcon robbed some stuff from him or whatever, some window.
Uh-huh.
But you could see Falcon kind of goes out of his way to say nice things about him and to say, hey, wait a second, this guy wasn't into all that. He was into this herbs and white witch stuff. So that means a little something to me.
It does, because if they did leave on bad terms, but he's still saying good things about him, it's most likely the truth.
Right.
Donnie Boone was a fucking vegetable too, man. I mean, he's card-carrying paper vegetable. I put up with him because the rent was cheap and I didn't stay there much anyhow.
Right. Did you ever hear of anything like this going on around Minot before?
I don't know.
Besides the herb practices?
No, the herbal things, everybody's interested in herbs. Minot has less faith in doctors than it does in licorice.
You can hear the frustration in Armienti's voice. He's just like, what the hell am I even doing with all this? You could just hear it in his voice.
Yeah, I think at some point they got a little frustrated with Maury that they were sent like on a semi goose chase.
Exactly. All right, let's carry it on.
The cross that Donnie Boone had painted red.
What's that?
The cross that Donnie Boone had painted red.
Yeah.
That wasn't blood, was it?
No, it was paint.
It was paint. And what did they do with the blood?
Huh?
What did they do with the blood they had drained the cat?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The blood that they had drained from the cat.
Yeah.
What did they do with that?
I don't know. I came in when Donnie was walking out of the kitchen with the blood, with the cat, and had cut the cat's head off. And that's when I fucking picked up my shit and got.
Didn't they report that they were drinking the blood? Like, wasn't that a big thing with the Maury?
I think Maury said one or two of them, John and Donnie, might have drank it. I'm pretty positive.
I'm almost sure about that too. Here, and of course, here he is saying that never happened. I mean,
you don't know if they drank any of it.
Right.
Huh?
Or at least he didn't see that happen. Right.
Right.
That's nothing. Do you know if they drank any of that blood?
I have no idea what the fuck they did. I just left them do their shit.
Do you know of John Carr ever drinking human urine? Or any
Not
kind
that
of
I
urine?
know of.
You never heard of that?
No.
How about Turkey? Was he involved in this kind of stuff?
Turkey was involved in his music. That's it. I don't think he ever gave a thought to it. I don't even know. But I'm sure he wasn't involved. Well, no, I can't say that either. Maybe he was. Who knows? I didn't know Turkey well either. You know. I'd say we were closer together, being musicians. You know. He certainly seemed normal to me.
This Steve character, was there ever a last name mentioned?
No, I can't think of. I'm sure there was, but I can't think of it.
If I gave you a few last names, you think you may remember?
God, I don't know. I just went through this with your buddy here.
Oh, did he mention his last names? I'll mention them anyway. Trackman.
What?
Trackman. Stephen Trackman. Is that
Trackman. Here it is.
That's it?
Yeah.
That's it.
Now, this is Reeve Rockman, right? The so-called guy who was involved with the Son of Sam and John, and of course, it was all originally came from Veronica Lukin and Detective Chinati, and was found to be a total hoax. But they gave him the name. He didn't come out with the name on his own.
Right. I believe they gave everyone there the name. So when they constantly refer to Trackman, and I think we've done it too, talking about it.
Right.
I think that's the name they were provided. They were asked to describe John's friend from New York. And I don't think any of them came out and said, yes, his name was Trackman. And
no.
They kind of had to get talked into that info.
They got talked into it, just like Turkey got talked into the symbol, because Armienti showed him the Son of Sam symbol, and then Turkey was like, yeah, that was it, man. Unbelievable. Let's carry it on.
His last name?
Trackman is the guy's name.
You positive, Phil?
I remember Trackman. Yes.
I can't think of anything else. Is there anything that I may have not asked you that you think I should know?
No. I don't know. I don't know anything about him, actually.
Any other aspect of John Carr's personality or character that I may have not asked you about that you feel I should know?
I don't know. I tell you, if I were you, I'd go to the Air Force shrink guys and get his records. Because he went with them cats for a long time, and I'm sure they've got notes on him for probably fill books.
Yeah.
You know, probably all your questions be answered there.
Let's see. Oh, I can't think of anything else. Hold on a sec.
Yeah, Phil. Yeah, I was talking to you before. Let me ask you, so we won't have to bother anyone. Where will you be next in the event we want to talk to you again?
Well, I will be right here until the first of the year, and somewhere around the first year or so, I'm going to move down to Phoenix, Arizona.
Do you have an address down in Phoenix, or?
No, I don't, not yet. I believe it'll be in the Scottsdale area, though. I hope to get a job with a firm down there.
What, are you staying where you are now, working?
I beg your pardon?
Are you going to continue working where you are now? No, you're in Washington now, right?
Right.
What's the name of the town?
Do what?
What town are you in?
I'm in Maple Valley.
Maple Valley. You're going to stay in Maple Valley now till the end of the year?
Well, I stay outside of Maple Valley about, 10 miles or so. And I don't have a phone, which is why I'm calling you from the main street here.
Is there any place we can reach you in Maple Valley between now and the end of the year?
I tell you, if you wanted to reach me, it'd be best if you sent me a letter and I could call you back.
Oh, why don't we do this, Phil? How about in about 2 weeks from now? Okay, you call us collect again, and if we want to, if we feel there's any urgency in getting in touch with you, maybe we can call Dan at R&R.
Okay.
Is that fair enough?
Okay.
All right, so figure in about 2 weeks, give me a call collect around the same time you did today.
Okay, what's that come out to here? About the 20th or something?
Let's see, what's today?
Figure around the end of the year. Figure around the 27th to 28th.
Right.
All right?
Okay.
Now, if we want to drop your line out in Lomino, you said you got an address out there, a contact where people you speak to.
So we just got to bear with this a little bit. I should have edited this stuff out because it's not really pertinent, but they do start asking him questions again towards the end. So everybody, it's just a couple more minutes. Just hang with this.
Periodically?
My grandma.
So could you give us your grandmother's name and address? If we want to speak to you, we can drop her a line, and if you speak to her, then you can get back to us.
It's Post Office Box 13.
P.O. Box 13.
Trenton, North Dakota.
Trenton?
Trenton, Trenton,
Trenton, North Dakota. Right.
58601.
58601. And the name?
And the name Mrs. Albert Falcon.
Okay, that's your grandmother. Okay, so in other words, if we want to reach you, we can drop her a line and ask her to please contact you for us.
Right.
Okay?
Oh, well, Phil, I just want to ask you one thing. Do you know if John Carr ever went to Bismarck?
Arliss Perry.
I couldn't tell you. I think he probably has been down there a couple times.
Do you know if they practice any of this gruesome occult in Bismarck?
In Bismarck?
Yeah, anywhere in Bismarck?
Boy, I don't know. I've been out of that town for a long time, but I haven't heard of any heebie-jeebies down there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And as you were saying earlier, no chicks that you know of with dating John.
Just so everybody can get that, in case that was a little distorted, Herb Leifer just asked, no chicks that you know of were dating John. So no girls were dating John. Let's hear what Phil Falcon has to say.
Okay, so is there anything else?
Yeah, the other thing, Phil, is let me ask you, again, do you have recollection, any girls you know of used to go out with John?
Do I what?
Did you know any girls he dated?
I really don't.
Or slept with, or screwed around with?
I really don't.
Did he hang around with young girls? Like 13, 14?
God, I can't think of any girls that he hung around with at all.
Mm-hmm.
I know I used to watch him try and score on girls and shit that came in the coffee house and stuff, but that was a pretty lost cause. He just was not a ladies' man at all. Part of it was his acne, part was his bad breath, some was his dandruff, most was his obnoxious,
And did you ever notice anything he used to wear around his neck, any jewelry?
No, he used to wear sweaters a lot.
You ever notice anything that he wore around his neck, any jewelry or neck? You know, all the guys who wear all kinds of stuff, they think they're Indians nowadays. You never notice anything like that?
No. No, I don't.
Okay. All right, well, look, thanks a lot for the information. And if you'll get back to us the 27th to 28th of December.
Okay.
Okay? And if we need you bad, we can write to your grandma.
Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot, Phil.
Yeah, hey, next time I talk to you guys, I'm going to pick a nice place where I can sit down.
That'd be a good idea.
You were standing up all this time?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, I mean, it can't get any starker than that.
You know what, Manny? For whatever reason, you gave Maury a little bit of a pass, and I've just decided that I'm just not willing to give him that pass.
Wait. Pass on what?
I want to mention something here.
Sure.
So when you read this chapter, Maury has you believe that not only was Falcon into the occult with this group, but using a pseudonym, Maury implied that Falcon had Leslie, how do you pronounce her name? Shago or
Shago.
Maury had you believe that Falcon provided her with a cut German Shepherd he had, who she brought to a taxidermist to have mounted. Now, we left it out, but
I have it. I can play it. Let me
But
find it.
If you have that clip, I
Hold
think
on. Dog ear. Here we go. So yeah, here's the thing about the dog ear. And we've done a show about the dog ear. It was another Maury hoax. Here's Phil Falcon talking about the dog ear.
You know a girl named Leslie Dowman?
Leslie. I know a chick named Leslie, but I cannot imagine her cutting up a dog.
No, she told us you gave her a dog's ear to be mounted.
What's that?
She told us you gave her a dog's ear.
A dog's ear?
Yeah, to be mounted. And she took it to a taxidermist outside of Minot.
That what?
That you had a German Shepherd that had died. And one of the ears was cut off. And you gave it to her to have it mounted.
I have never had a German Shepherd that...
So I don't know what happened to that, but he basically says I've never had it done. He expressly denies it. Another direct contradiction.
that was more narrative crafting. Because if Falcon has the dog's ear mounted, it makes him look like a Satanist.
Right, exactly.
And so I just didn't think we should let him get away with that. That was actually number 10. We had 9 lies. That's 10 lies.
Oh, right, exactly. No, we definitely could do a part 2 of Falcon just on this whole Steve crap and the dog ear mounting. We left that out because it was kind of just like little filler. The main stuff was the fact that let's go over, John, what we learned today. We learned that he never heard of David Berkowitz. We learned that he had no clue what kind of gun John Carr had. We learned that John Carr never spoke about Satanism, never spoke about the occult, never had anything to do with any of this before this one ritual, which was instigated by the mental patient Donnie Boone, who was unknown to this entire crowd because Dosenko got him out of a mental institution and just brought him to live up there. And we learned that basically this guy had no idea what the hell this was all about. I mean, this is even worse in a way than Brooklyn and Lomino Demasi.
The whole portrayal of this gang it just wasn't portrayed properly. It was exaggerated. No. Stuff was omitted.
It was manipulated. It was what's the term? 10 pounds of shit to fill a 5-pound box. I mean, I'm not quite sure. Oh, and also Dave Moth points out here, John Carr never got any girls and didn't know Falcon that well. And of course, in The Ultimate Evil, what does Maury Terry say about John Carr's dating habits?
Yeah, well, in the letter, he's called a rapist and suffocator of young women, but the accusations were that he had the eye for the younger girl.
Right, and that's something that we all thought was true, and here we are hearing that John Carr he didn't date any girls. They were repulsed by him. He had nothing to do with girls at all, really. Now it's not totally true. He did have a wife, he did have a kid, but it was from an earlier time in his life before he went. Something happened to him towards the end of his life. That much is clear. Did it have anything to do with Son of Sam? Seemingly not.
It's also interesting. Nobody seems to have. I was under the impression John and Linda were living together and they had a relationship. Am I under the wrong impression?
Well, we're going to do a show because Linda O'Connor has a tape, right? Does she have a tape?
Well, I think she has a red statement. I think
a red statement.
Her statement.
Correct.
She wanted to go on tape.
But definitely we have to get into more of these North Dakota tapes because, I mean, it's just unbelievably devastating to the cult theory. You cannot make any of these conclusions that Maury came up with in a confident fashion. You just simply can't do it. So, John, I think we did what we needed to do today. Do you have any final words of wisdom for the audience today?
Yeah, I just want to agree with you. If you're going to make claims that North Dakota is the key connection, these interviews are not consistent with what was said in the Ultimate Evil. And on a final note, what I'd like to say is, if anybody's not up to speed, Killer Tape episode 10 was released last night.
Thank you.
And Manny, let me tell you,
I heard it today.
Boy, did you guys nail the taxi driver. And I did hear Taxi Driver from you. A long time Zeman even mentioned that.
Right.
Berkowitz sounded like Bickle and Crackling Rosie too. But you absolutely nailed the Taxi Driver.
But none of them had what we had, which was Comparetto live on the air. We're getting a text from Jeff Hartenberg confirming that he loved Taxi Driver directly from his friends. That was reported on our show first.
Last night, I didn't realize to the extent. So I want to recommend everyone check out Killer Tape episode 10.
Episode 10 is unbelievable. This remember in our show with Gary, I was like, well, my only critique is that they didn't play enough of Berkowitz talking about the movie. Well, in episode 10, that changes. He talks all about that movie and how he saw it 3 times and he modeled himself on the character, and exactly what Jeff Hartenberg and John Comparetto said has come true in the real world. And now it's a new narrative on Son of Sam. Forget about this cult crap. It was all about Taxi Driver and anger and frustration and then triggered by noise. That's it in a nutshell.
Good job with Taxi Driver, Manny.
Thanks, John. Well, and let's give Gary some credit for that too, because
Gary, absolutely.
He was right in there with us on that. And so now, I mean, listen, we're doing the work that needs to be done. And listen, we're getting a lot of crap for it from certain people. But the simple fact is that most people understand that what we're doing is the only real Son of Sam research besides the Killer Tape people that's being done on the web right now. And of course, you're a huge part of that, John. I want to say thank you so much for joining me today. Of course, you and I have many more shows to do, so we will get on talking about our next topic just as soon as we can. And that's basically it. Let's just say goodbye to the audience, and then I'll take them on out.
Yeah, good night to all in the chat. And Manny, thanks for having me again. It was a pleasure, man.
It's absolutely my pleasure, and thanks for appearing on the show. We really appreciate it. All right, John, just hang out and we'll say goodbye off the air. All right. Well, listen, what can one say about what we just heard? Literally everything that was in Maury's book was directly and 180 degrees contradicted by the actual real world corporeal audio tapes of the living, breathing Phil Falcon, who was speaking to law enforcement officers under the penalty of, if he lied to them, they were gonna drag him to New York. They were trying every which way but Sunday to get the story out of him, and he told a very consistent story that had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with Maury's bullshit. All right. So listen, let this be a cautionary tale. Don't always believe what you read in books. We as researchers always need to do our due diligence and vet these things. And of course, we were given a gift. We were given a gift of the Queen's DA files, which created the golden age of Son of Sam research. And we are still in it, guys, and we ain't going away. So anyway, I want to say thank you so much for joining me. Please join me this, I believe, Saturday morning. It could be Sunday morning. It's the 28th. So I believe it's Sunday morning, where I will be doing at 11 a.m. Manny Reflects on the very famous and historically controversial interview with Detective Henry Chinati. All right, guys, take care. Thanks a lot.